Hi guys, welcome to the Wrestling Retrospective, and in today's video I'm doing my review of AEW Full Gear 2025. So first on the card we had Pac defeating Darby Allin in what was a good match, but I did expect more knowing how good these two are in ring. The similarities of these two, speed and also kind of the lightweightness that they have to how they wrestle, really helped the smooth transitional wrestling that they both do really well. Pac doing a Chinese burn to Darby Allin's actual burns is just purely cruel, but was a really cool spot for a match that didn't have any rules in it. For us it did have rules, so we couldn't really manipulate the injuries in a regular way. The finish made perfect sense. Why would anyone, let alone Darby Allin, trust a Death Rider to be honest about how they want to face them one-on-one and how they don't want any help and all that kind of stuff? Of course, Pac was going to cheat to win, and that's exactly what happened. But yeah, these two have a certain quality to them when it comes to wrestling, and this just didn't live up to the standards that these two have set for each other. There's a lot more out of this one. It was still good nonetheless. It was just average good, if that makes sense, for the quality of Pac and Darby Allin. I expected a lot more of this one. I expected probably one of the better matches of the night out of these two, and yeah, it was just a good match, which is kind of disappointing in a way, but I don't know whether they might revisit this match in the future. Maybe they're both in the Continental Classic and they meet there and have a better match, but yeah, I don't want to say I felt disappointed with it, I just wanted more. After that, we had the Timeless Love Bombs, so Toni Storm and Rina Shirakawa defeat the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, the Sisters of Sin, Julia Hart and Sky Blue, and the team of Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir to win the choice of stipulation for the semi-final match, which Tony and Mina will face Bayne and Shafir. And yeah, we had the two women start in the ring. It's a stupid rule. Why in a four-way match where there's no rules are we tagging in and out when we don't need to? Yeah, it's really silly, and I'm going to mention it every time until they stop doing this dumbass rule. But the match itself was decent. They kept tagging in and out throughout, which I was very surprised about. I thought that, like every single multi-team match, the match would eventually break down. We don't know who the little competitors. It's just all 8 women just beating the crap out of each other with no real rules or regulations to it, but that wasn't the case. They were tagging in it throughout the match, which kind of surprised me in a way, because I was expecting it, as I said, just to break down like every one of these matches do, but that wasn't the case. Again, there was kind of lack of quality in this match. It was an okay match. It was decent. I wanted that a little bit more. Shafir and Megan Bayne were the MVP or MVT, the most valuable team in this match. I thought they looked absolutely fantastic, and they were working so well as a unit. I'm not going to lie, I think that they're going to be the team that win the tag titles. I know that out of all the teams within the tournament, they're the most put together team, apart from maybe Windsor and Rio. But yeah, it just makes the most sense right now. These two are arguably two of the most dominant women as far as booking goes on the roster right now. So yeah, it would make sense for them to get the win. Yeah, Harley Cameron, I kind of see as very similar to Maxine Dupree in WWE. She's kind of had the moments where she's just been a comedy character. She started to wrestle a bit more. Now she's getting some momentum behind her. The only difference is that Maxine's won a title and Harley hasn't. But though it wouldn't surprise me if Harley did get a title at some point. But yeah, not a fan of the finish here. The many roll-ups between Tony... I can't remember who Tony pinned. Between Tony and somebody... it was Harley Cameron. So yeah, Harley Cameron and Toni Storm was just countering roll-up, counter roll-up, counter roll-up, counter roll-up. And then Harley kicked Tony in the midsection. Tony rolled her up, and that was it. I hated that. I thought that was an awful finish, especially when you've got 8 women in the match to do a roll-up finish after many counter roll-ups. I thought was really silly. I didn't like that one at all. I did think that Tony and Mina were going to get the win here because they've talked the most about the stipulation and the victory being within their favour, but I think it's going to be a case of they choose the stipulation and then Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir beat the shit out of them and get the win anyway. So yeah, as I said, it was a decent match. I didn't like the fact they were tagging in throughout. We could have just done with the match just breaking down completely because of the stupid rules and having to tag in. And yeah, the finish wasn't great either. I'd probably say this was the weakest match on the card. After that, we saw FTR defeat Brody King, and Bandido to become the new World Tag Team Champions. And this was an awesome match. This was by far the best match so far. All four was so good throughout this match. Everything worked here so well. Bandido is obviously one of the best wrestlers in the world right now in ring. Brody King is so good and fluent off the hot tag. He's powerful and quick all at the same time. That it makes sense that he's the hot tag through all of their matches that I can remember. And FTR are one of the best tag teams of all time. There was nothing about this match that wasn't going to make it great. So yeah, I said it was absolutely fantastic throughout. All the tag team wrestling was great. All the singles stuff was great. Everything about it worked. Respect to Stokely Hathaway for taking a suicide dive from Brody King of all people. I thought the first shot machine that they did was going to be it, but then the belt shot, so Cash Wheeler hit Bandido with the belt. I thought that was going to be it, and it wasn't the case. Cash Wheeler is a very underrated high flyer. I feel like, though he doesn't go up as often as most high flyers, when he does, it's so good, so fluid, and just looks really good. That, yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. And there was an awesome reversal of the Doomsday device. The resiliency of Bandido is crazy. The amount of stuff he kicked out of last night. I know some people might be like, oh, well, I'm just fed up with him kicking out at 2 all the time. Honestly, it adds to the match when it gets that late into it and he's still kicking out at 2. Yeah, I think Bandido and Brody looked very strong in defeat. I'm curious whether Brody continue as a team after this, as I can see them both probably being in the Continental Classic, but probably being on separate sides of the bracket, so one in the Blue League and one in the Gold League. But yeah, this was absolutely fantastic. I cannot fault this match at all. Once again, Brodido, as much as I see them as kind of a singles guy and a tag guy in a different team, they showed just how great they are as a team, and I really would like to see them continue as a team afterwards, even if just for a little bit before they move on to other stuff, because of course Bandido is the Ring of Honor World Champion as well. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what FTR do as tag team champions. I assumed that Copeland and Christian Cage were going to return here, and they didn't. Maybe they're saving that for Dynamite for Thanksgiving. But yeah, I can see, I don't know, I feel like they're going to have a lengthy reign compared to, well, I don't know, because Brody was pretty lengthy as well. But I don't know, I can see them going on for a while because they're just such big heels within the company right now that they're going to kind of keep cheating their way to keep the titles for a while. As far as teams I think are going to beat them, I'm really not sure, to be fair. But I'm interested to see who steps up, because there's a lot of teams that really could take the titles from them, but I can see them keeping the titles for a while. Following that, Ricochet won the Casino Gauntlet match to become the inaugural AEW National Champion. The participants for this were, of course, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, Ricochet, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Orange Cassidy, Wheeler Yuta, Kevin Knight, Roderick Strong, Mark Davis, Mike Bailey, and Matt Menard. And for me, to start with, the title design, I know it's like a tribute to the old NWA title. It's mid. I really think it's a kind of ugly belt, and it's really small as well. I don't get why it's small compared to all the other AEW titles, which are quite big looking. Yeah, not great with this one. I honestly at one point thought maybe they'll just scrap the International Championship and just put the design as this one, but that is obviously not the case. As I said, I understand it's a tribute to an old championship. Personally, I really don't like it, but either way, I mean, how the title looks is neither here or there. I was disappointed we didn't see a proper one-on-one between Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. I thought those two would have absolutely killed it. I was actually hoping it was going to be one of the best interactions that we get on the card between these two, and they just tried to wrestle for a bit and then Ricochet interrupted, which made perfect sense, and I fully understand why they did it. But yeah, I kind of just wanted to see Shelton and Bobby just go at it for a bit. Claudio Castagnoli beat the crap out of Ricochet, and then Ricochet's reaction when the next guy came out and it was another Death Rider in Daniel Garcia was very funny, and yeah, it only got worse for Ricochet from that point. The Death Riders should have won after Wheeler Yuta came out. They were 3 on, I believe, 3 on 4, 3 on 5, but the Hurt Syndicate was still down at the time. That's when one of the Death Riders should have got the win, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. The Hurt Syndicate, they were down for ages, and I mean a while. I forgot they were in the match at one point until they got up again. Yeah, the match was full of groups. It was really quite weird. So we had the Death Riders, the Don Callis family, Jet Speed, of course, the Conglomeration, and the Demand. I think the only person who wasn't associated with a group was Matt Menard, and he came in last. There was a nice interaction between Speedball, Mike Bailey, and Kevin Knight, especially the part where Bailey went for a super kick, and Knight just completely matrixed himself out of it. That was really cool. I would have loved it, going into the finish, I would have loved it if Wheeler Yuta had stolen the win. I felt like having Yuta as a champion, people would, I think it'd get a lot of heat behind him, because a lot of people hate Wheeler Yuta. Personally, I kind of like Wheeler Yuta, but of course I do. He's a Death Rider. I'm a fan of the Death Riders. But yeah, I think the winner was absolutely correct. Ricochet has more than deserved championship gold this year. He has had a fantastic year as far as his development goes. I know he's not had the most wins on the card, he's not had the best matches on the card, but since turning heel, he has been absolutely fantastic. And yeah, like looking at the grander scheme of things, he is more than deserving of winning this championship. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how he does as champion. I'm not sure like where else he's going to go with the title. New Japan and CMML are obviously the obvious choices because they're the two companies attached to AEW right now. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see him go elsewhere with the championship, and I feel like he's going to be a really great champion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes for him. And yeah, the match itself was really fun. But then it's really hard not to have a fun casino gauntlet. You know, it's like, for example, of having in the moment a bad Royal Rumble. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, everything was really good here. Very much enjoyed it. Just kind of disappointed about Bobby and Shelton not going one-on-one for a bit. Following that, we had what I'm very surprised to say is match of the night, which was Kyle O'Reilly defeating Jon Moxley in what was a very physical match. There was a methodical pace to it, but it fit the style of the match really well. I love the fact, I've loved Bryan Danielson on commentary as it is, but for him to make the call of explaining the stipulation as to why this one helped the match, with the fact that they can use illegal holds you can't do in a regular submission or just a regular match itself, I thought it was really cool. I love the moment of realization, for myself at least, where Moxley had trapped Kyle's arms so he couldn't defend himself, so then he got the fork out and just started stabbing the hell out of Kyle O'Reilly. Yeah, I enjoyed how Mox used the fork multiple times, and it's like the case of using the fork, but not only on his head, but he used it on his arms, on his chest, on his. He was stabbing him everywhere, in his back and all that kind of stuff. I think it helped him, and it helped him then take advantage of the match, and then he went straight back into holds afterwards, which is one of the main points. He's using an illegal maneuver in a no-holds-barred match, which obviously is perfectly fine, but he's doing it to get back on top of the style of match that these two are wanting, which is more holds, submissions, and all that kind of stuff. The fork to the nipple is a what the fuck are we even doing here moment, because why the fuck would you even want to do that? Kyle O'Reilly countered Moxley so well throughout. I was very surprised about how quickly Kyle was countering Moxley, especially with holds and stuff. It was absolutely fantastic. The counter wrestling from both was absolutely phenomenal. Kyle O'Reilly was so smart. So there was the point where Jon Moxley kind of essentially just snapped Kyle O'Reilly's arm. He could have broken his arm. We haven't really heard anything, but Danielson kept saying how he's probably broken his arm by looking at the state of the move that he did. But then Kyle O'Reilly to hold on to his trunks to stop the full Kimura going in, I thought made perfect sense. It was absolutely fantastic. And then, yeah, we got the finish, which was Kyle O'Reilly once again tapping out Jon Moxley, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on with Moxley? Why are we... I get the fact that maybe he's a top guy and he's putting other people over, especially Kyle O'Reilly, but Kyle O'Reilly has to be pushed after this. And yeah, I've heard that he's not going to be cleared to compete in the Continental Classic, which kind of feels like a backwards move. Why have him... You can't predict injuries, I get that. And if he's been actually hurt in that match by accident, then fair enough. If it's a worked injury, then why do that? He'd be a great fit in the Continental Classic. But yeah, this was a star-making performance from Kyle O'Reilly. I would argue this is his biggest career win today, I would say, getting a win over a guy like Jon Moxley, a 4-time world champion. But yeah, this was such a good match. Honestly, I'm not really into these kind of matches, so I was very surprised I got into it as much. It was so good, and I think it's only a matter of time until the Death Riders turn on Jon Moxley. I'm very curious to see when they do it, though, as I assume maybe one or two of the Death Riders are going to be entering the Continental Classic, but they can still kind of do that and be in the tournament. But yeah, I said this was an absolutely phenomenal match. I said it was my match of the night, which I was very surprised to say going into it. And yeah, I'm very curious to see where we're going with Kyle O'Reilly and Moxley going forward, as this feud has kind of massively impacted them both. After that, we had Mark Briscoe defeat Kyle Fletcher to become the new TNT champion, and this was a very bloody match. This was a very questionable winner, and I'm not really sure how to feel about it, but it was a huge moment for Mark Briscoe. There was an awful spot with the dive into the ladder from Mark Briscoe. I thought it was really grim. Like, the ladder essentially just, it didn't explode, but like, it folded like a piece of paper. It was awful looking. But, you know, you've got to respect Mark Briscoe. This was very early into the match as well, so we kind of knew what we were getting into from the get-go. Both men were absolutely pissing blood. It was so physical, but in like a different way to the past match, or the last match, sorry. Like, it was physical in the way of weapons and, you know, big impact moves, whereas the Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly match was physical in a case of submission holds and like explosive moves. But yeah, Fletcher is one of the sorry, I'll try that again. Kyle Fletcher has one of the best power bombs. It is so impactful, and he's done it like multiple times. But Mark Briscoe sells it like a champ as well. It looks like he gets awful whiplash from that. But yeah, some of the more brutal spots in the match: the net breaker onto the chairs on the outside looked awful. The thumbtack spots are always bad. The falling elbow through the table was pretty bad looking. Like, because it wasn't a case of Kyle Fletcher was laid out on the table and did the elbow, and it was very usual. No, Kyle Fletcher was like hanging off the ladder, and they both fell at the same time, which gave it more impact. Which, you know, is a great spot, and it looked really good. So I can't really argue about it. The screwdriver stuff is awful because it makes me cringe every time. The brainbuster into the tacks twice, one from Briscoe, one from Fletcher, was awful. The razor's edge through the barbed wire table, I thought was really bad. I do question the mental state of the Fletcher/Blue household, with both of them within 10 days absolutely pissing blood in matches, with obviously Sky Blue in the Blood and Guts match and Kyle Fletcher here. But yeah, it's very unique household, I can imagine. I thought there was possibly going to be a stabbing. We saw Kyle Fletcher stab a screwdriver through the turnbuckle, and he was going to go for the brainbuster on the turnbuckle, which luckily Mark Briscoe avoided, because that would have been a hell of a spot to take and very risky. But yeah, there was so many times within this match that it could have been over and we could have had a winner. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, this, for me, I'm not a massive Mark Briscoe guy, so I'm not majorly happy about him winning TNT title when Kyle Fletcher has been absolutely killing it as TNT champion. The only way this for me would make sense, and I can kind of forgive this decision, is if Kyle Fletcher then moves on to bigger things. So he goes on to the main event scene, as he proved himself very much at being able to be in that main event scene at All Out. Maybe he goes on to win the Continental Classic and takes the title from group members Okada and Takeshita. Maybe he wins it out of those guys. But yeah, as I said, this only makes sense if Kyle Fletcher goes up the card instead of staying in the mid card. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case. But we will see how it plays out. Mark Briscoe as champion, I feel like it's just going to be him just kind of pissing about with the title. He's already got a custom designed belt, which I kind of like. I like the fact that people got their own custom TNT titles. They did that a lot for like Powerhouse Hobbs and Wardlow and Scorpio Sky and Sammy Guevara and stuff. They used to do that, so it kind of makes sense in a way. But yeah, I'm curious to see how Briscoe goes as champion, who challenges him. But yeah, I would have preferred Fletcher to stay as champion personally. After that, we had the Young Bucks and Josh Alexander defeat Kenny Omega and Jurassic Express in what was a decent match. It was good for all involved, but I thought it would have been better, to be fair with you. Josh Alexander was the MVP of the match. He was involved in the majority of stuff going on, and he spent more time in the match than probably anyone as well. The transitional wrestling throughout was really good, but that was to be expected from all 6 guys involved. Omega was in the ankle lock for ages. Then you add on to the fact that he took a BTE trigger, and that should have really been the finish. I feel like, you know, the finish was fine for what it was, but yeah, this is where this match should have finished. It made Omega look really strong in defeat, and it would have. And also, it doesn't give Jurassic Express a pinfall or submission loss, which I feel like would have hurt them more than anything, because they've only just come back together, and it wouldn't shock me with the fact that the tag team champions are now heels, the fact that they now start targeting the tag team championships. But no, fair play to the Bucks. They landed on their feet from a Doomsday device, which was very impressive with how awkward that move can sometimes land on your feet. It was massively impressive. For me, it was the right winners. The final sequence was awesome within the match. I know I've just complained about how the finish was, but It was a case of like that could have been a finish more than anything else with the ankle locking the BTE trigger, but the final sequence was fantastic from all 6 guys. After the match, we saw the Don Callis family attack Omega and the Bucks made the save. I feel like after all this stuff, turning the Young Bucks face is a very questionable decision, as they're such natural heels that, if anything, turning Omega heel probably would have been my preferred option rather than turning the Bucks face, because I'm not going to lie to you, I really don't like the Bucks as babyfaces, but we'll see how this plays out. Again, I assume with them hugging it out with Omega, we're seeing the reuniting of the Elite, which again makes perfect sense. It's AEW or Elite Wrestling. You know, it's kind of weird not having the Elite around, but at the same time, how they are as a group is very questionable because sometimes they're just not great. Maybe they go for the trios titles from the Ops, which we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, it kind of just, I don't know how to feel about it because I'm not a big fan of the Bucks being faces or the Elite as a whole being faces. They're a very natural heel team. I'm hoping the Jurassic Express now go out on their own. They stop doing trios matches. They just concentrate on tag team. And yeah, the Don Callis family, I mean, it's an absolute unit. They have got their 3 top guys are going to be in the Continental Classic now, so I'm curious to see what Josh Alexander, Hechicera, and all them do for the time being. The Bucks as well, with them now being babyfaces, wouldn't show me if we did Bucks versus FTR again, which I just can't be arsed with. They've done it so many times at this point. But yeah, I'm curious to see how it goes with this. I'm just like, nothing about this has massively interested me, unfortunately. After that, we had Chris Statlander defeat Mercedes Moné to retain the Women's World Championship in what was the happiest moment of the night for me. I'm not going to lie to you, I was stressed, and I have not felt stressed like this for a wrestling match, probably since Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul. But yeah, I was praying that the hurt arm was a work, and I feel like it is. It definitely seems like it's a work, like it was just for the match, luckily. But Mercedes targeted the injury really, really well throughout. I liked how it started with them having like no filling out process. It was straight into the action, which was very much likable. For the like majority of the match, I'd probably say 75% of the match, Mercedes Moné dominated Chris Statlander, and I haven't seen Chris Statlander dominated like this by the likes of Megan Bayne, Willow Nightingale, for example. They couldn't dominate Statlander the way Mercedes did on the show. But yeah, it was very, very one-sided, especially for someone facing Chris Statlander. 14 suplexes is very Brock Lesnar numbers, don't you think? But by this point, I had low-key accepted the worst. At this point, I was like, great, Mercedes is going to bloody win. 14 belts for her. Bloody Statlander gets fucked on again by AEW. I can't be arsed. But luckily, Statlander did get back into it, though it was very late into the match by the point when she did. I thought both seatbelt pins were going to be it. Mercedes did one, and then Statlander did one not long afterwards. I thought both of them could have been the finish. I'd say kind of either Mercedes Moné wins by beating Statlander with her own pin, or Statlander steals the win and survives barely Mercedes Moné, which leads to a rematch. But luckily that wasn't the case. Statlander did a lovely package pile driver and sold the Poison Rana like an absolute champ. Poison Rana is probably one of my favourite wrestling moves. It looks awful every time I see it. But thank fuck Statlander won. I don't know what I probably wouldn't have been so enthusiastic. I don't know. I never never describe myself as enthusiastic, but I wouldn't have been such in good mood, I guess. If Statlander had lost here, I would have been in a bloody, very, very grumpy mood. I'm a big fan of Chris Statlander at the minute. I would probably say, and I said this on the podcast, the Steel City Slamboree podcast, Statlander I think is my favourite women's wrestler right now, as EO kind of has fallen off a bit on WWE. And yeah, I would have been so disappointed if she'd lost the belt to Mercedes here, but it wouldn't have shocked me either, unfortunately. But yeah, the matches with such high stress kind of make it really fun to watch. So I don't know if that makes sense to some people, but the ones where you're really, really invested in one person, but it feels like they're going to lose at times, so you're just really stressed. Yeah, they make for matches like, I don't know, they take like alright matches and make them better because you're so invested in it, and that's exactly how I felt here. But honestly, I'm hoping the arm injury is just a work. It did hurt the quality of this match. I thought the match at last year's Full Gear and the match at last year's World's End were better than this one. I was kind of disappointed with how this match went as far as quality goes, as I've said, but it was still great, and yeah, it was just the third best match they've had. And finally, in the main event, Samoa Joe defeated Hangman Page to become the new AEW World Champion. And there was a lot of swerves in this one. I completely wrote off Samoa Joe. I did not have him winning this match at all, so I was very surprised to see him get the win. This match got very bloody very, very quickly, especially with Joe. Joe bled buckets of this one. He had an awful gash down the middle of his forehead. But yeah, he was leaking blood. He wasn't pissing blood, he was leaking it. But yeah, it was a lot better than their match at Wrestle Dream, but it wasn't great either. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just Hangman and Joe just don't click as far as chemistry goes, but there's just something about these two that doesn't seem to work for me. And yeah, it's just a shame that it wasn't like the match I was hoping it was going to be inside the steel cage. It was as violent, and they used the cage as a weapon rather than using other stuff, which was really good. But yeah, it just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be in my own head, if that makes sense. There was more methodical paced, favoured Joe throughout this one. Both guys were an absolute mess by the end of it. It's a shame that we can't do cage matches in AEW without interference now. Because this one would have fit really well if they just didn't have the Ops get involved. They didn't have Eddie Kingston get involved. They didn't. I know Eddie came out to even out the numbers for the Ops, but yeah, it was a bit of a shame. There being a ref bump in a cage match really doesn't make any sense, because the ref can't do anything even if someone does get involved, so what's the point in doing the bump? But either way, Hobbs came in and he was an absolute beast. He ripped the lock and chain off the door, and yeah, we saw Hook come in. We thought he was gonna, we had to assume that Hook was going to help Hangman, because Eddie Kingston and Hook had been helping Hangman throughout this feud, and then we saw him smile with the belt, and then we saw him hit Hangman with the title and rejoin, I guess, the Ops. Now my assumption is the fact that Joe won this match is that Joe's Trios title will go to Hook, so the Trios champions will be Shibata, Hobbs and Hook, and obviously World Champion will be Joe. That's my assumption. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense, to be fair. Hook, I feel like, fits the heel persona better because he can just be the quiet type that just chokes people out for fun. And yeah, as I said, I think it's just better off that he's with Joe rather than with Eddie Kingston. Makes a lot more sense as those two are very similar. Yeah, very surprised that Joe got the win here. I wasn't expecting him to win here at all. I'm very curious to see what he's like as champion, and honestly, I can't see him being champion for very long. I don't think it'll be as long as his reign back 2 years ago. And then after the match, we saw the return of the most dangerous man in AEW. Swerve Strickland finally returned. He looks in great shape. He is jacked as fuck. But yeah, it's kind of weird though. We somehow have ended up in the same situation we were in like early 2023, around Dynasty and Revolution time, with Hangman, Swerve and Joe all going for the World Championship, and Joe is champion, because now it feels like Swerve is going to beat Joe for the World Championship, and it wouldn't shock me if that's the way they go. Swerve's a great World Champion, and I'm fully for Swerve getting that title back. Maybe they run back the triple threat match from Revolution at World's End. That wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, with a lot of roles changed within that one, as Swerve was more the heel in that match, so was Hangman Page. Well, no. Like, Joe was a tweener, Swerve was the face, and Hangman was the heel, and now Joe's the heel, Hangman is the babyface, and Swerve could be a tweener because he's always a tweener. So, yeah, it's an interesting one to go by. I'm very curious to see how they play this one out. As I said, I think the triple threat World's End makes the most sense, unless one of them enters the Continental Classic, which I can't imagine they will. But yeah, very happy to see Swerve back. We've needed him back for a while, as there's been a lack of people in the world title scene or cemented in the main event scene, in my opinion. So I'm kind of glad that he's back, especially while MJF is out. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this goes and how maybe MJF factors into this one as well, as obviously he has that contract that means he only has to give a week's notice for him to get a world title match. But yeah, so very curious to see how this goes. Very surprised that Samoa Joe is champion. So those are my thoughts and opinions on AEW Full Gear 2025. Do put down in the comments below what you thought of the show, what you thought of the shock wins of arguably Kyle O'Reilly, Mark Briscoe and Samoa Joe, what you think Swerve's going to be like being back in AEW. Obviously, we heard literally on the day that it was going to be next month he came back. So very surprised to see him here. And yeah, anything else, anybody you want to see in the Continental Classic? I was hoping they were going to announce during Full Gear who was going to be in the Continental Classic, which they kind of did. We know that Kyle Fletcher, Takeshita, and Okada, obviously, are all going to be in the Continental Classic. But I'm curious to see who else is in it. I'm hoping Brodido are going to be in it. I'm hoping that Shelton Benjamin's probably going to be in it. Maybe Bobby Lashley as well. But yeah, say do put down in the comments below who you think is going to be in Continental Classic. Do check out the video I did going through who, like, the Continental Classic I'd like to see that came out a few weeks, maybe a month ago. And yeah, say anything else you want to talk about Full Gear, we'll talk about that. There's a lot of stuff coming on the content-wise on the channel as well. Obviously, next week will be coverage of Survivor Series. There's a brand Survivor Series card I'd like to see coming up on the channel as well as best of WWE matches and all that kind of stuff. Like lots of lists coming up as well, so do look out for those, as well as a kind of retro review, the main event memories video. I'm going to do a review of Survivor Series 2006, so do look out for that as well. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.